Today we're looking at the Tulsa Race Riots. Hello, welcome to the Daily Bellringer. Please don't forget to subscribe and take a look at the questions down in the description. Also, don't forget to check out dailybellringer.com where you'll find more resources that go with many of the Bellringer videos. The Tulsa Race Riots, or Tulsa Race Massacre, occurred in Tulsa, Oklahoma during the early summer of 1921. To this day, it is considered to be one of the worst and most violent racially motivated riots in American history. Estimates range between 40 to 300 people were killed during the incident, with hundreds of people injured and thousands left homeless, as dozens of blocks of Tulsa were burned during the riots. Before and especially after World War I, racial tensions in America were growing. Thousands of African Americans were migrating or moving out of the South, mainly due to unfair treatment in the South because of Jim Crow laws and other Reconstruction policies that heavily discriminated against them. As African American communities began to grow in northern and midwestern states, there became more competition for jobs. Many white Americans began to grow angry, and racist organizations such as the Ku Klux Klan grew in power. African Americans began to face the same violence and discrimination in these states as they had endured in southern states. When America entered World War I, thousands of Americans joined the military or were drafted. When the war was over, they returned home and found the increased competition to find employment, and racial tensions grew. Tulsa, Oklahoma was a rapidly growing city in the early 1900s, with many oil industry jobs in the area. The city had a population of just over 100,000, with approximately 10,000 African American residents who lived primarily in the Greenwood neighborhood at the north end of Tulsa. The area had a thriving business district with many African American owned businesses and was sometimes referred to as Black Wall Street. The riots took place on Memorial Day weekend, May 30th, 31st, and June 1st of 1921. The spark that set off the riots was when 19-year-old African-American Dick Rowland was arrested for allegedly attacking 17-year-old Sarah Page, a white elevator operator in a downtown building. On the morning of May 31st, Rowland was taken to jail at the courthouse. Very quickly, rumors of the attack spread throughout Tulsa, and by the late afternoon, a large mob of white citizens was outside the courthouse, demanding that Rowland be turned over to them to be executed. As night fell, a group of 75 armed African American men came to the courthouse to offer the sheriff assistance in protecting Rowland from the mob. When the group arrived, they encountered a mob of nearly 1,500 angry white citizens, many of whom were armed as well. Quickly, gunfire broke out between the two groups. The enormously outnumbered group of African Americans was forced to retreat to the Greenwood neighborhood. The night descended into chaos as groups of white citizens began to march through the city, attacking any African Americans they encountered. Numerous gunfights erupted between groups of whites and African Americans. The National Guard was called out to attempt to stop the violence and protect the National Armory from rioters breaking in and taking weapons. By the early morning hours of June 1st, the mob began pouring into the Greenwood neighborhood. Thousands of white citizens began looting or stealing items from businesses they had busted into. The mob set fire to homes and businesses in the area, and it was reported that when firefighters arrived to put out the fires, they too were threatened by the mob and not allowed to fight the fires raging through the neighborhood. The angry mob even launched several airplanes that flew over the Greenwood neighborhood, dropping firebombs onto homes. Thousands of African American residents fled from their homes, and many were arrested and forced into detention centers in the city. By around 9 a.m. on the morning of June 1st, additional National Guard troops arrived from Oklahoma City, and by noon, most of the attacks and violence had stopped. It's estimated that over 1,200 homes and businesses were burned, including schools, churches, and even a hospital. It is estimated that over 800 people were admitted to area hospitals with injuries. Over 6,000 African Americans were being held in detention centers, and a minimum of 40 people had been killed. In barely 18 hours, nearly 8,000 people in Tulsa were homeless. Interestingly, Dick Rowland, the teenager that had been accused of attacking a white girl, was released shortly after the riots due to there not being sufficient evidence of the attack. It said that Rowland quickly left Tulsa and never returned. Unfortunately, the Tulsa Race Massacre quickly became forgotten history, as many attempted to cover up what had happened. It would not be until nearly 50 years later that the riots were closely studied and became an important part of the race relations narrative in America. The riots marked a sad and heartbreaking time in American history that hopefully we as Americans can learn from and never allow to happen again. So with that, hopefully you learned something, and thanks for watching.